Talking about rookies, we're about to make our top 5 rookies list. So this is my list as it goes. This is not in order, all right? But this is my list. Justin Jefferson I have on that list, right? 16 receptions, 348 yards. It's probably more because I actually wrote this before the Sunday game. So he probably has like 400 yards, right? He's on pace for like 1,400 yards, and he had a 100-yard receiving game in the last 2 games before the Sunday game against the Texans and Colts. Joe Burrow is in my top 5. Granted, he had a really bad game against the Ravens, but it's the Ravens. Joe Burrow has elevated Cincinnati. At least they're an entertaining and fun team to watch now, right? I have Justin Herbert in my top 5, without a doubt. I have Michael Onwenu from the Patriots, offensive lineman. He actually has the highest graded. He's the highest graded rookie through the first 4 weeks of an NFL season since 2006, and his PFF grade is 1992.2. And then my other rookie is Chase Young, or Antoine Winfield. I know Chase Young has been injured; he hasn't played every single game, but just when I watch Chase Young, how dominant he looks, and he's as advertised, right? I have to have him in my top 5, and Antoine Winfield is playing great at the safety spot too, so he deserves recognition.
Yeah, and I also included Chase Young on my list. I think that he has just really made that line a force in Washington, and it's helped them compete in some games that I think that they had no business competing in.
Yep.
And he looks like he's going to be a guy that will be not only an all-pro, but potentially a Hall of Fame talent, which we kind of knew coming into the draft.
Yeah.
And he has done everything that you would have expected out of him in his young career so far.
If we're being honest, if it wasn't for Joe Burrow having one of the best college seasons of all time, Chase Young is a number 1 pick.
Yeah, 100%. And another guy you just mentioned, Joe Burrow, everybody had the highest expectations for him, and I think he's coming to Cincinnati in not the best situation, and I think he's thrived for the most part. He's had his struggles, but there's a lot of growing pains going on in Cincinnati right now. There's a lot of talent there, but it's a lot of young talent, and I feel like they're piecing everything together, but they're competing, and that's something that you can't say for the Bengals for the past 3 years since Andy Dalton was a solid starting quarterback, and I think that they found their franchise guy just like the Chargers. We mentioned Justin Herbert. He's also on my list. I think that those 2 teams found their quarterback of the future, and remains to be seen in Miami if Tua is that guy, and maybe you have that trio of quarterbacks in the top 6 that can be that
franchise
future.
Quarterbacks. Yep.
And I am very intrigued to see Tua later on this season. I'm sure we are going to see him at some point.
Maybe. And Fitz played like a Hall of Fame quarterback against the 49ers.
If anybody knows about Ryan Fitzpatrick and the way his seasons pan out, it's Jet fans. By week 10, I'm sure you'll be seeing Tua out there. I want to say Mekhi Becton because in the time that he did play, he was a game changer for that offensive line. Like he looked like a genuine veteran on that line. He's been everything the Jets could have expected and more, but I don't think he's played enough games. I think that 2 receivers can make a very good case. Justin Jefferson was one that you mentioned.
Claypool.
That's a very good point. I was going to say CeeDee Lamb.
Okay.
He's made a big impact in Dallas with 2 great receivers next to him and Ezekiel Elliott, who's one of the best running backs in football. Obviously, that offensive attack has been forced to be more pass-centric, but I like what I've seen out of CeeDee Lamb, so he also made my list. But I think that there's been a lot of guys that you can make a case for.
Yeah, you can. I mean, this draft class was a pretty great draft class. I mean, just for wide receivers, I mean, Laviska Shenault, Chase Claypool, Justin Jefferson.
Claypool on Sunday.
4 touchdowns. Yeah, he was phenomenal. Chase Claypool, CeeDee Lamb. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been bad either. You know, this receiver draft alone has been really great. Offensive line, Tristan Wirfs is having a good season with the Browns. Mekhi Becton, you mentioned him. Tristan Wirfs isn't too bad in Tampa Bay, even though he got demolished by Khalil Mack, but that's Khalil Mack, right? But yeah, this offensive, I mean, this rookie class is really good. It was hard to make this top 5 list, especially after Sunday when Claypool got 4 touchdowns. He definitely jumped up on the listing,
and he could have had a 5th too had it not been for that pass interference call. And then I think even running backs, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and James Robinson.
Yep, James Robinson, yeah.
I was not high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he has proved me incredibly wrong. Granted, that offensive system couldn't be a better fit for a running back to walk into and be successful, but he has shown skills. Like he's made plays, no question about that. And then James Robinson, who came out of nowhere, undrafted free agent, walked into a perfect situation with Fournette leaving, getting immediate touches, and he has made the most out of all of them, even at a position that is becoming incredibly undervalued. And we've seen it, you look at McCaffrey, who is the best running back in football, I think, indisputably. And since he's been out, the Panthers have gone 3-0. It's pretty incredible. But these two guys have really made an impact on their team as much as Clyde Edwards-Helaire can. And I think that James Robinson has been huge for that Jaguars offense and Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, and running backs are undervalued because of guys like James Robinson, who are undrafted rookies that come in and play like they were first rounders, right? Because he's having a better season than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and he's undrafted, and Clyde was a first-round pick, right? Like, I think as good as Clyde has been, I think if Kansas City drafted a guy like Antonio Gibson, the running back in Washington, they would have just had the same impact. Antonio Gibson is really good. Like, he makes a lot of tacklers miss. He's a receiving back. They would have been fine, right? So I think running backs are getting undervalued, and in this draft, it just goes to show it with James Robinson basically leading the way out of every single running back.
Yeah, and luckily for the Chiefs, it was like they didn't need any position. So a running back was like a luxury for them with that first-round pick, and they ended up hitting on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think that there's been a lot of impressive rookies. I also, at the running back position, I really like John Taylor in Indianapolis. I think he's going to be a really solid pro.